All right, my name is Matt Ayers, and I'm interviewing Miss Betty Nickell. We are at 97 Chestnut Court. Today's date is Wednesday, August 17th, 2011, and the time is 10:18 a.m. Good morning, Miss Nickell. Thank you for joining us. First off, just a basic question. Were you born in Mansfield?
No.
Okay, where were you born at?
West Liberty, Kentucky.
All right, so why did your family originally come to Mansfield?
Well, when I was a baby, and I have two sisters, two brothers, older than me. When I was 2 years old, my dad was killed at work, working for the WPA, coming out of the Depression. We lived there 2 years after that, which would make me 4. And then my mother had 3 sisters who lived in the Mansfield area. And they decided and suggested that we should move here. We didn't have no way to get here. We didn't have nothing. We had absolutely nothing. So one of my mother's sisters and her husband came and picked us up in a pickup truck. We didn't have nothing, so therefore the pickup truck was not full. Only of 5 kids. We were in the back. And we pulled into Mansfield looking just like the Beverly Hillbillies.
Do you remember what year that was when you came to Mansfield?
Well, I was born in 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, somewhere thereabouts. We had nothing, no place to go. Now, my mother had 3 sisters here. And one sister and her husband came and picked us up in that pickup truck. They only had one child, a son. She had another sister who had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Her third sister had 16 children. Wow.
Yeah.
They moved us here. We had nothing, no place to go. She lived in the north end, the one with 16 children. The other 2 lived somewhere else in Mansfield. Their husbands had good jobs. The one with 16 children, her husband was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
We needed help desperately. And the only one of the 3 who helped us and took us in was the one with 16 children. We moved in a teeny tiny home of hers. Now we got 21 children, 2 mothers and 1 alcoholic father. And the other 2 sisters had means and could have helped us, but she's the one who helped.
And where was that home located?
In the north end, I don't recall the street. It was right straight across from the steel mill at that time.
Okay.
So then we found a little place. My mother found some type of job, and we found a little place to live on Madison Avenue. And then later, as she progressed and got a little better job, we moved to Crestline Avenue. And I'm not of school age, and she had to work, so she would hire a babysitter for me. And I was ornery as they came. I didn't want nothing to do with the babysitter. I mean, I'm about 5 years old now, I'm not school aged, and I think we started school back then at age 7 or something like that. So, my brother, next in line to me, he found this dump down across the street from Peabody Barnes. Peabody Barnes made faucets, brass fixtures for your homes, whatever. And inside that factory, they would pour their brass into molds. They would run over. They'd drop in the floor. And they'd take a scraper and go by at the end of the day and scrape all that up, put it in wheelbarrows, drive it across the street to the dump it. Right up the street across the railroad tracks was a junkyard. And it was called Malo's Junkyard. And my brother, I'm a little teeny thing, and you know, I'm just a little teeny thing now, I'm not very big, but you can imagine me back then, right? He taught me how to go down there and dig brass. Now, I'm quick in my mind, you know, and I found me 2 paint buckets with a handle on them. I'd fill them buckets up with these pieces of brass, lug them up to the junkyard and sell them, you know. And them men up there couldn't wait till I got there, because I'd tell them dirty stories. I'm this big, you know. And here she comes, they'd holler, you know, and I was tickled to death to get in there, and they'd set me up on the counter, and I'd tell them a dirty story, then I'm back to work. That's my job. So, now, I didn't have no way to get out of that house after my mother and my siblings would go to school. She'd go to work. Well, we had an outside bathroom. Outside toilet, in other words. And I would holler, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom. And that babysitter would let me out. I'd run down there, then I'm gone. To the dump. My job. All day long I was gone. Now, I'm real quick in my head, in my mind. I was like a little monkey, you know. I listened to steel mill. I would hear this buzzer ring. And I knew that that was their break period. And so, okay, I'd take me a little break. I'd leave the dump and go up and play on the train cars on the railroad. If you can imagine something that little, get a hold of that ladder the best I could, you know, put my feet up on the train car like that, pull myself up and ride that train car, and it'd go a little faster, a little faster. When it got to a place where I knew I had to jump off, I'd jump off. And roll down this little slope that was there. Some days, in the summer, there'd be an open car, have watermelons in it. I sneak up in that car and roll me out a watermelon. It'd hit the ground and break. I'd jump down there and eat all of that I could handle, you know.
Sure.
So then, now, I hear 2 buzzers ring at steel mill. Lunchtime. Okay. There was a guard shack out in front of the steel mill, and the guard guy, he knew my whole family. We knew him and his wife. And she would pack his lunch, and she would always put me a sandwich in there with his sandwich. Never forget that sandwich, a Philadelphia cream cheese sandwich. So I would go there, eat my sandwich with him, and we lived, when we came here, we moved into what we learned later, the poorest district in Mansfield, in the bottom of the edge out there. Well, we thought we was rich. We didn't know. We had a house, you know. Well, I don't really think I knew there was a south side in Mansfield till I was maybe 50 years old. Not really, but you know, pretty close to it. So anyway, we lived on this street. So I go and eat my sandwich here. The babysitter's in there washing clothes, and I'm going right past the house, you know, but there was no way they were going to get me back in that house. So my mother finally at one point said, I'm paying these babysitters for nothing. they can't control her, I can't control her. What are we going to do with this child, you know? So I eat my sandwich. Then I move on up the road to a house right beside our house. A black lady lived there with her husband, wonderful people. And they had some apple trees, and down in their basement, where it was cooler, they kept baskets full of apples all the time. Had apples. I eat my sandwich, I go there and get an apple. Then from there I go across the street to another black lady's house who had a daughter who was bedridden. She was like 30 years old or something when I knew her, you know. Never had been out of the bed all of her life. And so her mother would feed her at this lunchtime. And everybody was accustomed to Betty coming up the road, doing her thing, you know, so they was prepared for me. So I get my apple, then I go across there, she feeds her, laying in the bed, and then she would give her a bowl of ice cream. I get one too. Well, I get done with that, clear up to the end of the road at Bowman Street. A lady up there would always give me a piece of chewing gum. As soon as I got my chewing gum, back to the dump. I stayed there. Now, on my way to that dump, I also had to pass a garbage dump where people dump their garbage. So I quickly learned that when I go past that garbage dumps, there's going to be a rat on it. I learned I got me a big stick, and I would hide that stick. At night when I quit work, I'd hide it in the weeds up here. Nobody ever found it. Come back, get it in the morning, knock them rats off that garbage pile and get in there. And every day I wanted to find a hat. Some kind of hat. I didn't care what it looked like. I'd just get it out of there. But I'd knock the rat off, find me a hat, get out there and go to work, see? That hat might be slouched off the side of my head. It might have been a straw hat, you name it. I had them. So I found me an orange crate one day. I thought, oh, that's good for me. I can haul my junk in there. So I would keep hats in there and whatever have you, and I kept shoe polish in there, and a brush and a rag. And anybody come to my house, I'd say, want me to polish your shoes? Yeah, I was making money doing that, you know. I was plumb crazy. Anyway, I would pass that dump, and I'd take that stick back at night and put it up. And then I would come, I knew when that last bell rang at the steel mill. I knew that was me, my mother coming home on the bus. Ching, I'm going up to the end of the road to meet her, and she said, she always told people this, she said, it was the most pitiful thing that you've ever seen in your life. But on the other hand, she said it was funnier than all get out. To see this little teeny thing come trudging up that road, dragging that orange crate, big hat slouched on her head, coal black, from being in a dump all day. I lived a life.
Sounds like it.
But like I say, we were rich. Our mother loved us. She could have given us up and not raised 5 children. But she did all that by herself.
What did your mother do for a living?
In later years, she got a job at the Mansfield Tire. And she worked there, and she'd be laid off and then go get a job in a laundry, and then back, they'd call her back, and then she worked in Martin Steel for a period of time. She worked herself to death.
Yeah.
Purely. But anyway, then as time progressed on, and we moved. We never had a car. My mother never drove. We never had a car. So my kids, my sisters and brothers grew up, got married. They had everything, you know, they needed, husband and wife and cars and stuff. They would come and take us where we needed to go. And then when I was age 16, she bought me a car, so I could, because I lived with her most of my life. Until, I guess, the last year before she passed away, and I bought a house right across a couple of streets down from her because we knew she couldn't get better. And I didn't want to still be living there when something happened.
And that was still on Crestline Avenue?
No. We moved from Crestline Avenue to Spring Street, which was right across the street from Mansfield Tire,
Okay.
where she could walk back and forth to work before we had a car. From there, I did have a stepfather once along the way. When I was just little. I seen this man walking up from the railroad tracks. I had a hawk eye. I watch everything goes on, you know. And I saw this man walking up from the railroad tracks carrying a suitcase. And I said, ooh, he didn't look right to me. You know, and he stopped there at our house. We were down at close to the railroad. And little did I know that a few months later, he would marry my mother. And little did we know that this man had previously killed 2 of his wives,
Oh,
beat them to death.
that's awful.
Little did we know, somebody told him about my mother and our family here in Mansfield. He lived in Kentucky. He came here in hopes to marry her, obviously, and he did. And in the process of that, about a year, I'm assuming, I don't recall, and I don't even recall my mother saying just how long she was married to him, but it wasn't long. Maybe a year, I'm guessing. So he about beat us all to death. Enough of that. She
Yeah.
got rid of that and never remarried after that. So
Wow.
we had a time.
What did he do for a living?
What did he do?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Why would he? She was working.
That's terrible.
So, but anyway, back to where I was. We moved with him to McPherson Street. You know where that's at. Then from there, we moved to Howard Street, off of King and between King and McPherson. Had a nice little place there. It was just me and her then, you know. And then from there, we moved up to Prospect Street. That's as far south as I had been, and I didn't understand, you know, when I was like this. South side didn't mean nothing to me. North side didn't mean nothing to me. We was in a mansion, as far as I was concerned. And we were happy. We ate a lot of beans, cornbread, fried potatoes. But we've lived fairly long lives. My one sister and brother-in-law, both are the same age, 83 this year. My other sister is 79. She'll be 80 next month. My brother, we had one brother who lived in Alaska, and he passed away up there, and he's buried up there with his wife. And but my brother who lives here lives up here on Villa Drive in a condo, and he turned 78 this year, and I'm 74. So that's where we are in age. So for the way we grew up, I would say that's a pretty good past.
Yeah.
With only a mother who raised us. She passed away at 69. Her sisters both lived till up in their 90. One was 94, one was 93. So it's been an interesting life.
So where did you go to school?
Bowman Street School,
Okay.
John Simpson.
And then did you go to senior high?
Senior high, 1 year in
Yeah.
the 10th grade.
Okay.
I quit.
Did you?
Mhm.
Okay.
I would sit in school, you know, just like when I was a kid. Well, I couldn't. The first day I went to school, you want to hear about that?
Yes,
At
ma'am.
Bowman Street School. We had to I lived in blue jeans. I still do. Okay? I would put my brother's jeans on every day, roll them legs up as high as I needed them, you know. And that's the clothing that I had. But my mother, there was a little second-hand store up on North Main. And that's where she bought our clothes. That's where she bought cook items, skillets, pots, pans, everything.
Do you remember the name of that store?
I don't.
No.
It was on the corner of North Main and 6th.
Okay, we've heard about
Fifth.
that store, yeah.
North Main and 5th there.
Okay.
Man, that was a pleasure to me to meet her after school and go in that store, you know.
Yeah.
Everything was secondhand, but to us it was new. So where did I at in this story?
You were telling us about your first day of school at Bowman
Yeah.
Street School.
I didn't know what a dress was.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yo, boy, I couldn't wait to go to school with my sisters and brothers. Now I think I'm getting big here, you know. Oh boy, but she had to put a dress on me, and I said, I'm not wearing that dress. Oh yeah, you're wearing that dress. Oh no, I'm not, you know, argued back and forth. She finally got that dress on me and took me up to school. I mean, I can remember this visually, sitting in school like this. How am I going to get out of here? I got to go to work. I was the only kid in the neighborhood that had money. And all the neighborhood kids couldn't buy candy, so I spent all that candy on them. I mean, money for candy. So I just got up and walked out of school. I'm sure somebody must have been scratching their heads or where did she go? You know, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm walking down Bowman Street toward Crestline Avenue. We had a store there on Bowman Street. It was called Davis's Grocery. Okay, that's where we bought our groceries, and we didn't have money to pay for them. And he would let her run a bill, and she'd pay it when she could. If he didn't have it, he didn't take that. So I'm heading down, and I looked up, and here she's coming up to the grocery store. I said, "Oh my God, I'm a dead duck." She just walked right up to me, was quiet. "Where do you think you're going, little girl?" I said, "I'm going to work. I have a job to do." "I'll get you to work, all right." She reached up somewhere on a tree and pulled her a switch off, and she whipped me every step of the way back up to that school. I stayed in there, but every day I was like this. Through till I was 16 years old, I would just sit and look out the windows. I didn't have no business in here.
Now, do you have any memories of Bowman Street School being segregated?
Well, no, not really.
No.
I'm sure I tried to segregate it. I fought with black kids.
Yeah.
A fist fight. They would pick on me. I'm little, you know. Everybody thought they could just kick me around, you know. I got pretty tough in them days.
Yeah.
At least I fended for myself, put it that way.
So the neighborhood was pretty mixed back then.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we had some really good black, I call them friends, neighbors.
Sure.
And actually, they're family, and you know.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot, and like you have everywhere.
Yeah.
You got some good, you got some bad, you got some rough, you got rebels, you got this, you got that.
Sure.
And I learned to overcome a lot of things in those days.
Yeah.
But see, in 1990, after Westinghouse shut down, 1991, I got a GED. The only child in my family who graduated.
Okay.
I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah, that's
You know?
great. So besides collecting brass, what would you say was your first real job?
Working in a restaurant,
Yeah. Do you remember what restaurant or what?
Tom McNew's restaurant on the corner of 4th and Diamond? No. Mulberry.
Okay. 4th and Mulberry.
Right down from the new shop.
Okay, sure.
And then I went from there up to another restaurant. I don't know exactly why I went there, but I did. It was called, it was Max Diner, across from the old Leland Hotel.
Okay.
And then Tom McNew wanted me to come back down there, so I went back down there. They even took me to Galleon. They had a place over in Galleon, and I worked there for a while for them. And then from there, I got a little job in Dominion Electric, and was laid off. During all these years, my brother, who showed me that dump and taught me how to do all that, he ended up working like almost 40 years at Barnes's, Peabody Barnes.
Wow.
The irony of all things, right? So, anyway, then at the same time, my mother was working at the Mansfield Tire, and I would meet her uptown. She'd tell me meet her up there after school, meet whatever. So I knew pretty much about what I was doing. Well, we passed a pawn shop, and every day when I was up there, I would look in that pawn shop. I want that guitar. I maybe was 15, 16 years old. I didn't know how to play guitar. You know what I mean? You're not getting no guitar. I don't have money to buy a guitar, you know, and every day, somehow my mind was rolling. I got to find a way to get that guitar, you know. Finally, she bought me that guitar. She paid $12 for that guitar in the pawn shop. I didn't know how to play it. A year or two, it probably just sat in the corner. I was too busy out doing something else out in the neighborhoods, and we lived on Spring Street when I really got interested in that guitar. Prior to that, I would hear these country music programs on radio. We had radio. And there was two guys on there that would talk, and then they would strum their guitars. And I'm not hearing nothing they're saying, but I'm hearing them guitars, okay? Duh. Well, I wonder what that is. I wonder what they're doing. And my head would just roll about this playing. I would sit there and then get this guitar. Well, I can't do that because these strings don't sound right. They don't sound right. Finally, the one guy, I heard him picking and tuning. And I caught on to that right quick. And I thought, this is all done by ear. Everything you see musically in this trailer. I don't know how to read or write any music. So anyway, I picked up on something, and I was banging on this guitar, driving my mother absolutely crazy. Oh, she's driving me nuts, she said. So I finally learned how to play one song. I was so proud of myself, I couldn't, I could bust the buttons off my shirt. Blueberry Hill. And that's all I could play, and that's all I did play. So my mother at the same time, now I'm about 19 years old here, somewhere thereabouts, met a man she worked with at the Mansfield Tire who played music, steel guitar, in a country band in this local area. He played with a lead guitar man and himself, and they had a drummer. That was it. And he was talking to her one day about me, or she was talking about me, and she said, and she plays this guitar, she's about drove me crazy, but she can play this one song really good. And that guy said, well, what's the song? And she told him. He said, well, we're looking for a lead singer in our band. Do you think I could stop by and hear her? And my mother said, sure, so she brought him home one day. I said, I can't play this guitar, but all I can play is Blueberry Hill. Play it. And so I did, and he sang it for him. He said, well, would you like to play in our band? I said, I just know that one song, that's all I know. Well, you'll pick it up, and I said, well, I suppose. So I joined that band.
You remember the name of the band at all?
I don't even think we had a name. Chuck Morrison was the guy's name who led the band. He played guitar like Chet Atkins. He was another Chet Atkins, there's no doubt in my mind.
Wow.
He was fabulous. But he was not a person, and I don't mean to be critical or demeaning, but he was not a person you could count on. If you called me today, said, set up this interview here, 10 o'clock comes, you don't show up. I mean, I'm getting a little irritated now.
Sure.
So he would call and cancel the job we had to do. Or he just wouldn't show up till, if it started at 8 o'clock in the evening, he wouldn't show up till 9:30. I mean, I just had this one brain, and it functioned in a strange way, in my opinion. But anyway, I thought, well, if he can't get serious about this business, what we're doing here, I don't want no part of this. So finally, I think after he broke one of the last engagements we had, or whatever he did, now I got angry. And I said, I will start my own band. I don't need to play like this. If I'm going to play, I'm going to be serious about it. And no flip-flopping around with me. So I got busy, and I found me a guitar player. And I play guitar, but I found me a lead guitarist. I had a bass player, I had a drummer, had everything I needed to start a band. So I started this band. And we were playing at the Hi-Hat nightclub right on this side of Galleon, before you went into Galleon. It's a union hall or something in there now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I got this band, I got this job. Wow. Up on this big high stage, about like so. A place seated approximately around 400 people. At first, we was a lot like Elvis. We didn't catch on. People didn't catch on. Pretty soon they did. More would come till we was running people out the door in this place. So I played there approximately 2 years, somewhere thereabouts. And then an offer came to come to Mansfield, to the Ringside nightclub.
So it was called the Ringside?
Ringside
You
nightclub.
remember where that was located at?
On right across the street from where the old bus station used to be. What is that street down there? I don't remember now. Diamond?
I think so.
3rd and Diamond,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
right there. There was an Oldsmobile car sales over here. A bus station down below that Ringside nightclub in another little building. A hotel over across the street that burned down back in those days. And Sears, I think it was on the corner, the other corner over there. Anyway, I said, I had went up to the Ringside one night and saw a young man playing there, had a band, and he was very good. And that place, of course you were never in it, right?
No.
It was a big ring, like a boxing ring. Ropes, posts, rope stage back here, cut off with a pull type curtain, big, like vaudeville or something, you know. Oh man, I was just so moved by what I saw taking place in there, you know. It's like, wow, never thought nor dreamed that one day I would play there. So that offer came, and I said, no, no, no way. I can't play that ringside. That's too big for me. Well, we're running out of space at this other place.
Mm.
And I think, well, maybe I could go and talk to him. I don't know. So I did, and he hired me. And we drew all the people who was at Yard over here quickly. But I played the ringside for 9 years. Now, during that 9 years in there, other people would come from as far away as Norwalk and other places and buy us out of there through the owner. They'd pay him to let us go and play for them. He'd say, okay, you can have her for 2 or 3 months, but I want her back. And we'd go back.
That's great.
Somebody else come along, same thing, right? I said, what in this world is going on here?
So were you making some money doing that? I mean, did they?
Well, we got paid a little bit out of the bar, plus what proceeds came in at the door.
Okay.
And like that, money was not the issue here.
Sure.
Never has been in my
Yeah.
life.
Well, did you get a chance to make any records back then or anything?
Yeah,
Yeah. How did that go?
that is exactly how that certificate up here came about.
Okay. And you're referring to being in the Rockabilly Hall of Fame,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Recorded, we left the ringside. I said, well, I'd like to make a record. Well, the place to make that record, in my mind, was California.
Mm-hmm.
I talked that band into going to California. We went there. We made a record in Hollywood.
Wow.
This was the first record I ever made. And I've shown it to you two men. And the title of it is Hot Dog. Recorded in Hollywood, California, by the group I had back then, which was called Betty Nickell and the Rockets. And that little record right there. Am I gonna move here? Can I
Sure,
show
if you want to, yeah, go ahead, move over there. I got you.
Okay. That record right there is what garnered me this certificate that I received from the Rockabilly Hall of Fame in Nashville, Tennessee. I received this in July, on July 27th, 2009. I didn't know anything about it, had no thought, no idea that I had been inducted into that Hall of Fame. But it all came about by this one little record. Now to speak just for a moment about this record, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I went to California to make a record. And in the back of my mind, I was never good enough for anything like this. What has transpired, I just wanted to make a record. And so the nightclub that we played at, they liked us and they liked what we did and everything. They had money. At the time, I just took them on as people like you and people like me. We're from Mansfield, California. Whole different ballgame here.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize nor think nor certainly did not foresee that these people were involved in mafia. But they were good to us. They paid us well. They were good to us. And he said, we're going to take you down to Hollywood and make a record. I said, Hollywood? Are you kidding me? We was in L.A., playing. Outside on their wall, they completely repainted the whole outside wall. They put a big rocket on there, put that name of that band on there. And from day one, my piano player told me, if you hire us, it was the first and only place we auditioned. They hired us right away.
Mm-hmm.
If you hire us by starting time at 9 o'clock, that was their hours, she will have people lined up the sidewalk out here. And that guy said, oh yeah, sure, and I kicked that piano player under the table. I said, no, you can't say that. This ain't Mansfield, Yeah, you don't have no confidence in yourself, he said. But I got plenty of you. That's my piano player talking. He was right. That's the way people did out there. If they liked the band, they lined up on the sidewalk until they all got in. They couldn't all get in. Well, that club owner, he didn't know what to make of this. So a few days down the road, he took us to Hollywood.
That's great.
Now, these were people who were filthy rich. I didn't know a dime from a nickel. You know what I mean?
Sure.
What business have I got to go to Hollywood and make a record? I just thought make a record. I never give it a place, or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, in the process of making this, there came a point, the guy who had the studio, the recording studio, I don't remember his name, he had a band, too. And he recorded us. And then the club owner told me the record was done. He told me, we're going to book you in at the Pomona Fair. You know what that is?
Pomona.
The largest fair in the world.
Really?
Yeah. I said, no, I can't play no Pomona Fair. I knew about it, but I didn't know. So the way that this Pomona Fair was set up, you know how fairs are. They have paths that you walk on. They got little huts. That's what they called them. Mm-hmm. Little huts. And in these little huts, you did your thing. And they're lined up on, I don't know, biggest place I ever seen. I mean, people come from all over the world to that fair. So, this guy who had the studio, he was playing in this hut, and then we were to come in there and play after he got done. People were just walking. You know how they do at fairs?
Sure.
Walking past the huts, looking here, looking there, looking here. Just what you do, I guess. And so now comes our turn, and I was scared to death. My knees were shaking together like this. That's an understatement. I mean, I was scared to death. We get in that place, and I told my piano player, I said, I can't do this. I said, I'm scared to death here. It'll be all right. And so we started playing. People started stopping. Not because we were that good. We were different at that time.
Yeah.
Now, not only are they stopping, they're crawling up on the top of the huts. They're got the roofs of them huts, I don't know how it held them. It was packed all around that place. Next thing I know, police come through the back door, drug us out there and took us and stuck us in the trailer.
Wow.
Beatles, they ain't got much on me.
Wow.
I've been there, but I didn't understand it as I went, you know.
Hmm.
All because of this new record.
Cool.
But now, the club owner, whose name was Joe, he was Italian, I can't think of his last name now, isn't that awful? Senior moment. No, Joe, he had a brother named Tony. He had a son. These were wealthy, wealthy people. The son did what he does for all the Hollywood stars. He did all the facial changes. What do you call that?
Like makeup artist?
No,
Maybe like plastic surgeon?
plastic surgery.
Oh, that, okay.
I mean, he had a yacht 10 times bigger than this trailer here. And so he was going to be our PR man. I didn't know what a PR man was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning as I was going. You know? So his father, Joe, said, tomorrow or whatever date he set up for us, you will go to, I don't remember his name, Joe. His name was Joe too. He said, you'll go to his home and he'll lay out the whole thing for you there, and you sign the contracts and you sign this and you sign that. And so me and my piano player, which he did a lot of the talking sometimes when I would be too shy and draw back, you know, he'd jump in and he'd take over and handle some business. And so we went to that home. We pulled up there and I said, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, that's the biggest, hugest place I ever saw, at least at that point in my life. I mean, we stepped in that door, some butler or whatever he was, met us at the door and let us in. We walked into the foyer and I said, Dennis, what are we doing in this place? The foyer was big enough to house 20 people. I said, we ain't got no business in a place like this. Let's get out of here. He said, oh no. But in the meantime, I'm hearing right here down the, if you call it the hall, this door was cracked about yay far. And like I said, I was always real quick to pick up on things. I'm hearing somebody talking on the telephone. He's talking overseas. He said, I told you guys, don't worry about the money. My $3 million will be in your bank Monday morning. I'm saying, I mean, I couldn't even figure that up. You know, from the north end to this kind of a scenario, ain't happening. So, he had all the papers laid out here on the desk and the record. And he said, we're going to book you, we're going to make you into a star. I said, a star? I don't want to be a star. I just wanted to make a record. He said, we're going to make you into a star. You're not one now, but we're going to make you into one. I have all the money and the means to do all this. And matter of fact, he said, we own practically all of St. Louis, which later told me about the mafia end of it, so to speak. But on the other side of that coin, Joe, the guy who owned that nightclub, he told us once, and I called him a liar. He said, I worked for the FBI, and I was very instrumental in putting Al Capone behind bars. I said, oh yeah, sure. I'm glad we're in California. That's where they make all them movies at, where people tell all them lies at. Yeah. He said, you think I'm lying? And I said, well, it don't sound right to me. So he took us in his office one night when he paid us and opened his safe up. he got out these letters from the FBI. Everything was just what he told us. Now, they guaranteed, the FBI guaranteed him and all the rest of his family for the rest of their lives 100% guaranteed protection for the rest of their lives. Well, I mean, we was dealing with something here bigger than I ever seen in her telling.
Wow.
So, here's his son. I'm going to make you a star. I don't want to be a star. Dennis kicking me under the table. I said, something here don't sound right. Now, I tell people today, even today, I go back to the same time in life. And I tell people today what I told them then. When I was growing up, I had a very wonderful mother who taught me right. I didn't listen to her. At least not all the time. But when I needed what she had put in me, if you didn't look right or you didn't talk right to me, I knew, and I'd flare right up in your face. Well, this didn't sound right. These contracts, this record, didn't sound right to me, and I couldn't explain that to nobody. But I could hear my mother saying, something not right here. Okay? So I said to Joe, I don't know about you, and I don't know about you, Dennis, but I'm here to tell you that something doesn't sound right to me, in this. You need to, there must be a catch in this somewhere. And he said, well, there is. I said, oh. In my mind, no, now we're going to get down to some brass tacks here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, then why don't you just be a man, and why don't you lay it all right out here on the table? And if it's right, it's right, and if it's wrong, it's wrong, and we'll forget the deal. Well, okay. He said, we're going to book you from here, L.A., back to St. Louis every night, from there to New York, and then back to L.A. again. I said, well, what do you think I am? I mean, I did all the singing, and we had maybe 2 or 3 instrumentals we did. And I did all the singing. 4, 5, 6 hours and non-stop. 10-minute break in between. I said, what do you think I am, an Amazon? I said, now, you said there's a catch in here. Now, I want to hear it. He said, all right. When we start you out, we'll put you in these nightclubs. If it's a man who owns the nightclub, if it's a woman who owns the nightclub, if it's a red man who owns the nightclub, a yellow, a black, whatever, then you must, and that was the turnoff right there, you must do exactly what they want you to do. Well, I'm a painter, by the way. I can see a whole big picture here. If you can see the picture, you're not likely to end up with one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw that picture immediately from my mother's words. No, no, no. I said, in other words, you're telling me that I must, and Tony, Matt, honey, I did not know at that time that I had a soul. I didn't even know what I was saying. I said, in other words, you're telling me that I must sell my soul to have a hit record. Is that what you're telling me? Basically, that's it. I said, basically, I shoved the papers, the contract papers, the record, you name it, I shoved them right on his lap. I said, no, thank you. Not me. Pow! My piano player kicked me in the shins. I didn't think I'd ever get over that one. He said, you can't do this. I said, hey, be still, man. They're not talking about you, they're talking about me. And I'm not going down that road. A hit record, that don't mean nothing to me. Well, okay. So that was over and done with, but we continued on playing there for a long time. I don't know, 6 months maybe, till I got so homesick I couldn't stand it. My phone called to the ringside. He said, "You better be here by Friday." So I'm there. So they're posting big signs out on that building. Betty Nickell returns, you know, and da-da-da. The place is jam-packed the first night we get there. Later on, I don't know how long, we played there, 9 years. And so sometime during that 9-year period, Duke Herbert, he run the top half of the ringside, and his dad, he owned the whole thing, his dad, and he run the bottom bar. And Duke ran the upstairs. And so Duke, we had a very, very good relationship with Duke. And he, at one point, I named my band, my next band. I had a couple of members or 3 that might have quit or whatever, we do what you can do. When we came back, I changed the name of the band from Bet's Rockets to the Dukes now. Mm-hmm. Betty Nickell and the Dukes, after him. Mm-hmm. He was so good to us. And so, at one point, he never told me this. If he had told me beforehand, I might have been better prepared for what took place. I don't know, a year or 2 or 3 down the road, whatever. We're playing one night, and it came break time, but prior to break time, I looked over here, and I saw 2 men seated over here at this table, and I thought, what's going on here? It didn't look right to me. These 2 men seated on the same side of the booth. But upon further looking at them, I realized these were not ordinary men, because they were dressed, I mean, in suits that looked to me like probably cost $1,000. Mm-hmm. They were dressed. And that's not the kind of crowd that we were used to, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So they're sitting over here, and they called me over at break time and said, "Could we buy you a drink?" I said, "Nope, I don't drink." "You don't drink?" I was already drunk. My life was a mess, okay? I guess it's kind of like when you can't whip them, you join them, or something of that effect is how it ends up out there. So they called me over and they said, "Can you do any of the old standards?" I said, "Well, be a little more specific." And then they explained themselves, and I said, "Well, I can do Unchained Melody, I can do Time After Time, and I think 3 or 4 more, whatever it was." "Well, would you do them for us in the next set?" I said, "Yeah." I thought, I knew these were educated men, I could tell that. And so, I had a lot of experience with a lot of different kinds of people. That's how I learned these things along the way. So, I go back up there, I sang what they told me to, and they called me back over the table next break, and they said that was real good. "Are you interested in making a record?" I already had this one made. I said, "Well, yes and no." "What do you mean, yes and no?" I said, "I guess everybody, young people, I guess, when they get started in this music vein like I am, that probably does become one of their deepest desires. I'm only guessing. Yeah, I'd like to make a record." I already had one. I didn't tell them about that. You know. "Well, we would like you to record with us." "Who's us?" we're from RCA. I said, oh, yeah, sure you are. And you just happened along in the Ringside nightclub. I didn't know that Duke had called these people there. I didn't know that, okay? So I said, oh, sure you are. Well, we are, and we'd like to put you on the label, on the RCA label, but there's a few stipulations. I said, name them. Well, first off, we don't need your band. Second off, you need to let your hair grow long. I said, hold it right there. Let's don't talk any further. That little band has made me, and I have made them. And we've been together 6, 7 years. No, that band doesn't grow. Second off, what's my hair got to do with it? Well, we'd like, I said, it doesn't matter seemingly what you like. I'm me. And I'm the one you're talking to and the one you're talking about. So, little did I know, Matt and Tony, that at that time, shortly thereafter, they came out with Elvis Presley and Ann Margaret. That's what they wanted me for, to be that Ann Margaret. I didn't know that. Nor did I care. No, Elvis was my idol, you know, but that, anyway, I told him flat out no. Well, I had a guy who was paralyzed from the waist down. He fell off a roof. It was a roofer. He fell off. His head went in a hole. He landed on both shoulders and was therefore paralyzed from the time he was about 20 years old. And he was married and had a daughter prior to that. And he couldn't work and he couldn't do nothing, and he wanted so badly to become our manager. I knew he couldn't do nothing. But I gave him that job just so he could make a little money and help them out. You know, and every night we'd lug him up the stairs, 2 flights up the ringside, and back him up in his wheelchair, you know, like that. And anyway, he was acting manager at that time. I went home. Next day I told him that story, and I had that card. Well, they said, if you ever change your mind, here's our card. I said, you might as well keep that card. I'm telling you right now, I'll never change my mind. I'm not giving up this band, which they said, you can pick them up later. I said, no, that don't work that way. When I need them, they'd be scattered here and there, and what, I ain't going there. I learned some things along the way. So I showed that manager that card, and he said, you don't really believe they were real? I said, well, in a lot of ways I don't, but in some ways, the things that they said, I about had to imagine they were. He said, let's call the number and find out. And he did, and it was true. Okay, I have just now figured this thing out. It's impossible, folks, for me to tell 74 years in history. But I tried to show you how my life went. And then it came to another spot. I came to another spot. In 1978, in lieu of all this music and everything that took place in the past, I was out in these streets in Mansfield. I met lots and lots of really nice people out here. And I met some not so really so nice. I met rebels, which I was one, I guess. I was just about everything you could lay your tongue to. And drinking. I never got into drugs. I tried some, but that wasn't my bag. My bag was alcohol. And so, in the running of time in my life, from 20 years old to 40, I became an alcoholic. Am I ashamed of my past? You bet. But I'm not really here looking at this camera to make history. I am history. And what I have to say on this tape is of the utmost importance, if not to you, still to me. And that is that those streets out here in Mansfield, and not just Mansfield only, but every city in the world is out to destroy you. Praise God. If you give him one moment of opportunity, he's out to save you. And he saved my life. And a lady I worked with at Westinghouse. I worked at Westinghouse for 19.8 years, almost 20 years. And I wasn't sober in those days. I would go in there after playing nights on end and still be hungover from night before. Long story short, I had a friend who worked there. Her name was Mary Kreisen, whom Tony, Matt, you may know. He was fire chief in Mansfield for a long time. She is the one who pointed me to Christ. When I came in, I'd been out in the streets, drunk, fighting, 2 black eyes, black ring around my neck. I was lucky to be alive that morning. Many mornings were like that. Many times I should not still be alive today. And I could tell you all about those, but I'm telling you about the most important thing that I know. And that most important thing that I know is how God saved my life. He saved my life mentally, physically, emotionally. Any way you could save a life, that's how he saved mine. And I'm never going to forget that as long as I live. But a lady at work told me one day, I came in all beat up. She said, Betty, I can't hardly stand this anymore. She started crying. I can't see a person with the potential that you have in you allowing yourself to be destroyed like this. She said, you have a Bible at home? I said, I do. The first Bible I ever got, I just got in December of 77. This is March of 78. 3 months. She said, you have a Bible? I said, yeah. You go home tonight and you read Romans chapter 1, because God has something he wants to tell you. I said, what did you say? She said, God has something he wants to tell you. I said, what is it? She said, I can't tell you. He has to tell you. I got angry. I went on back to work. I came back an hour or so later and I said, explain that to me, what you said to me. I don't understand what you're saying. I can't tell you, Betty. She said, God has to tell you. Go home and read Romans chapter 1. I'm back to work. I'm angry as ever. Come back a third time. I said, you're going to tell me what you've been talking about all day, because I don't, what is a book of Romans? She said, or Romans. What is this Romans? And she said, it's a book in your Bible. You'll find it. I said, what's a chapter? She said, you'll find it. Well, by the time quitting time came, I was so stirred up in here, I was looking for truth. For once in my life, I wanted to know the truth about my life. I'm not proud of the lifestyle I lived, but I lived it. But it never would live. It never would live. And I couldn't understand why. I went home that night from work and I was so stirred up down in my inner being. I don't like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And why I had that in my home, a jar of peanut butter, a jar of jelly, and a loaf of bread in the refrigerator, I never have known even to this day why it was there, because I hated that. I went home, I normally took a bath or a shower, went out and ate supper. But this day I didn't. This day I couldn't. I had to find out what that was she was talking about. I got that Bible, laid it on the kitchen table, and I'm starving. I just didn't even take a bath. I made myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Sat down at the table, opened this Bible up. I said, what is this? What is this? Romans. Right below it, chapter 1. What is this? Only opened it once. There it was. I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I read that. I got up from that table, walked around that table, came back, made myself another peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I did this all night until 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, oh, that's me in there. Yeah, that's me. Well, I said, I don't even know if there is a God. I don't even know if you're up there. I don't even know if you're really real, whatever you are, or wherever you are. I don't know that. But just in case that you might be real, or you might be up here somewhere, then it looks to me like that you must be right and I must be wrong. Or vice versa. I must be right and you're wrong. March around that table, fix another sandwich, do that all night, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, all right, I can't fight this battle somehow. I'll tell you what I think I see. I said, I think I see that if you're around somewhere, then I have a decision to make. And if that's true, then I'm going to make that decision right now. My first 10 years that I was saved, in my walk of my salvation, we fought like that for 10 years till he was straightening me up. Mentally, physically, you name it. But I didn't know about all them battles. But this battle, I said, well then, in case you are up there somewhere and you're right, then that means I'm wrong. That means I have a decision to make and I'm making it right now. You're right and I'm wrong, and that's why my life would never live. So I'm just speaking to somebody today. I don't know who. Only God knows. The streets of Mansfield or any city will destroy you given enough time. Given enough time. So if my life story in any kind of way could promote you to see, the streets aren't worth it. But he is. Oh, but he is. Hallelujah to the Lamb of God. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for letting us interview you. We would definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. So.